We all want a voice, and we all want to be heard, but sometimes we need someone else to do it for us. That is exactly what my guest today does best. Give those in need a voice, a job, a future. Stay tuned to hear about the inspirational work of this young tech entrepreneur. Welcome to Invest Insights. I'm your host, Abby Lindenberg. My guest today, Hannah Töpler, is founder and CEO of Intrare, a social startup revolutionizing the inclusion of refugees, LGBTQI+ individuals, and other diverse talent in Mexico's workforce. Töpler's journey has put her in a position to have a positive impact on people's lives, with her work and educational background in Europe giving insights to humanitarian crises that have helped shape her focus areas, including human rights, immigration, and connecting refugees to the workforce in a meaningful way. Töpler's social startup leverages artificial intelligence to provide diverse talent with job recommendations, document support, and training, allowing employers greater access to talent and a window into becoming more inclusive. Through Intrare, Töpler hopes to help thousands of refugees per year, connecting them with companies and helping to make Mexico a more open society. Hannah, guten Tag. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Abby.
Well, Hannah, I was just so inspired in researching you prior to this interview. The type of work that you've decided to take on at such a young age and just oceans away from your home country of Germany, now based in Mexico. Just really kudos. And I'm so excited to get to know you more professionally, but also find out about the woman behind all the work.
Oh, thank you. No, it's really such an honor to be here and speak with you.
Well, how about we start at the beginning? Who was Hannah Töpler before she became founder and CEO? And how would you characterize yourself then? And how have you changed since starting Intrare?
Wow, that's a big question and definitely a very big journey. For me, it's very clear that it starts from having been brought up in a very small town in the south of Germany, coming from this, I'd say, very sheltered environment, but also not necessarily showing me what things were going on in the real world, you know? So for me, it was really exciting to get out right after school and before university, traveling for a year, earning money to be able to fund my trips through the world. And one of the biggest epiphanies I had in my life was probably when I was 18 and I ended up volunteering for a while in Ghana in a school. And I just started realizing how absurd it was that my way of contributing was teaching children in this West African country, while in reality, what they needed so much more was a more systemic change, better trade agreements, you know? And I think at that point, I realized I wanted to somehow go into impact. I had no idea how to, but then I sort of embarked on this journey of studying political science, going into the international development world through first a think tank and then being with the UN in Geneva. So that was sort of like the first insight that I got into the world of development. And I mean, from there was also a really huge leap to then jump into the social startup world, which is totally different.
What was your first job?
My first job. In reality, I'd say my first job before even starting international development was working in elderly care in an elderly home in my hometown. From there, I actually went on to have a lot of similar jobs. I was in quality control with Daimler. Funnily enough, I was a waitress. I actually had a lot of jobs before going onto my professional journey in the field I'm in, which for me has been incredibly insightful to understand people better that work, I would say, in a real economy that sustain our economies entirely. So if I think about the people that we place with jobs now, they do a lot of the jobs that I did when I was younger. And I think that has helped me a lot to have much more empathy with what that looks like. And from there, the first really exciting job that I got was when I was finishing my BA, going into the UN in Geneva with the German representation and really starting to see how countries negotiate to come to international solutions together, and the power play dynamics to try and find good solutions, but also serving their own interests. I think that was really a fascinating experience.
Absolutely. And what were some of the biggest takeaways from your time at the UN?
Yeah, I think a huge takeaway was to never underestimate the power of negotiation between countries and of the power of some countries taking certain issues very seriously and deciding to do something about it. I think that was very impressive to me. And also seeing that despite that power, often a lot of things remain in a very abstract realm. So they can talk about gender equality and come to resolutions and help each other to think about how to implement more policies in gender equality. But at the same time, it stops short when it comes to implementation very often. And I think there's where I started thinking about, okay, how can you leverage other tools like technology, like AI, to build social impact at a much bigger scale? And really saw it like for all the power that you have in that world, you have to find solutions that are much more business-like to create social impact.
Who has been one of the most influential people in your life, and how have they impacted you?
Yeah, for sure. One of the most influential persons has been Chema Vera, who, when I met him, was the director of Oxfam in Spain. And while we were working together, became the interim director for Oxfam International. It's really interesting. The way I met him was that he was really good friends with the director at Oxfam in Mexico, who I was working with. We started working together, and I started seeing this person who was working in a very big organism, working on social and economic inequality all around the world, and who was never afraid of speaking up against things that were not working, which always happens in big organizations, and who was not afraid of thinking about how to innovate and in all of these aspects, how to use your voice to call out things that are not okay and not be afraid that sometimes the political landscape is really difficult, right? Because it happens, especially if you work in things like diversity and inclusion, equity, social inequality. Very often, you're not sure if you should say certain things because it could go against, for example, what certain people and businesses think, and you want to make sure that you maintain really good relations. And I really admire how he manages to always speak up.
Well, as you know, there are very few women in the tech space, and you recently won the Aurora Tech Award. Congratulations, by the way. And you cited that women only receive 3% of VC funding. Understanding that context, what gave you the faith to enter this space, and what can be done as a collective to get more funding into women's hands?
Wow, that's such a powerful question, and I actually have a great example to visualize what happens. Yesterday, I went to a really amazing event for entrepreneurs organized by two funds here in Mexico that I love, that are amazing people. And I walk into the room, I would say there were about 50 people. And at first sight, I saw one woman and only men. And I thought it was so overwhelming to even see that I had to hold myself off from laughing, because I feel like this is something where I think we often think it happens naturally, but in a way it happens by design. So something that I personally have noted where we have to change a lot is that it seems much easier for men to create relationships and to feel comfortable with each other in this space. So something that I've been working a lot on with my friends, they're also entrepreneurs, is telling them very directly, you as men who are entrepreneurs have it so much easier to create friendships and relationships with investors. You have to take me along, and you have to take the other women entrepreneurs that we know along, and be the bridge that makes this possible and that creates a comfortable zone for everybody to be in, right? And just be able to break these barriers. So I think that, although it sounds like something very social, I think is really crucial, because the one thing that I have noted is that people will be interested and people will invest when they feel comfortable one-on-one with you, when they feel, like they are not just in a professional zone, but really understand you. So I think that is absolutely crucial. I think what is also really important is, on the other hand, foster more women going into VCs and going into investment in general, because that is where I've seen them driving an active change. There are a lot of women investors that I really admire, because they are not only brilliant in analysis and understanding the market and taking good decisions, but also at the same time in creating this network and support for women, empowering them and pushing them into the right opportunities.
What was your inspiration behind in starting Intrare? And when did you realize, I can do this? I can be great at this?
Wow, that's an amazing question. Okay, my inspiration behind Intrare is very big. As you know, I come from Germany. My two grandfathers fought in the Second World War. And when I was younger, I struggled a lot with the question of how could it ever happen that a country became so hostile to certain groups of people, And I thought a lot about that. I think there are a lot of psychological dynamics that can go on, that can happen in countries triggering these situations. And then in 2015-16, in Germany, we have a lot of people starting to vote ultra right wing, because they feel like we shouldn't be taking on so many refugees from Syria, from Afghanistan. From there, I go on to London to do my master's, and Brexit happens in reaction to migration as well. And then Trump wins. And I think it just formed this full picture where at some point I thought, this is so psychological. It's not even political. It's about fear and not being able to manage the situation. So I said, it seems like there is something that could be done in Latin America to actually pioneer more inclusive societies, because there is not so much exclusion happening. People are so much more relaxed about refugees, about LGBTIQ, about elderly. It's just a much more relaxed space. So what I wanted to do was create a solution where we could give inclusion to diverse populations, and at the same time help companies become the catalysts where this inclusion happens. So every company that hires diverse, that hires inclusive, changes society entirely. And say with the solution that we are building now, we are projecting that within few years, we can impact the first 1 million diverse people. That means that we'll be impacting thousands of companies, becoming more inclusive and diverse, while also becoming more efficient in recruitment, which I think is super important. And with that, really drive societal change, which I think is so important, because societies will become more diverse inevitably. And I think the best thing we can do is find a way to manage that is good for everyone in the country.
What you've decided to take on is no easy task. Finding work for refugees at a time when nations are becoming more isolationist, more inclusionist, and yet we have displaced people all over the world that still need to work, live, and thrive. What have been some of the greatest challenges in your work with Intrare? And on the other end of the spectrum, what have been the most rewarding?
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of challenges in building a startup where you have a social mission, and in the beginning, often it's not very clear what your business model is going to be. So I'd say the first big barrier was that we heard from all sides, there's no way you're going to be able to monetize this. This is not going to be able to grow because there is no market for this. So first was creating the market, creating interest. And then for us, it was really important to find a solution that added so much business value that the impact became a no-brainer for the companies. And we are super proud that finally we came to a point where right now we are preparing to launch a SaaS solution for companies where they can literally manage their whole recruitment process, from filtering, pre-selecting to managing all candidates, and become so much more efficient, because our AI is so powerful in efficiency, plus in eliminating bias, that they also save $1,000 in average per job opening, which is really amazing. So that I would say was the biggest one for us to tackle and to make sure that we got right, because with that means for us that now if we add so much business value, it becomes so easy for companies to buy and to be generating a lot of impact with us at the same time. I think for anyone who is aspiring to be a social entrepreneur, I think that is really important. Never underestimate the importance of finding the right business model, and of having to be very creative, and of trying out a lot of things that will most probably not work out, for in the end finding the right. I'd say the biggest reward is undoubtedly seeing the enormous change. We hear so many stories from diverse folks that have started jobs with us. Just last week, one of the first 5 refugees that joined Intrare, he is a refugee from Cameroon, and he had to flee, interrupting his studies. It was really complicated. We got him a really good first job here in Mexico. He started saving money. He went on to do his PhD, and he wrote to me to tell me that he finished his PhD with the highest grades, and then he is going to go on to do his postdoc in quantum computing.
Wow.
I was floored, Abby. I couldn't believe it.
What a success. You know, I'm hearing what you're talking about, and it seems that it's working out so well in Mexico. Are the ambitions to bring it to other nations? And what might be a challenge in going to a place like, for example, America, which at this particular political moment has become more isolationist in many ways?
Yeah, that's a great question. 100%. Our ambition is to go regional very fast, and from there, in the long run, go global. So the great thing about us now having a SaaS solution to manage the whole recruitment process is that companies can buy this to use it not just in Mexico, but regionally. We have a lot of companies that are multinationals, for example, that usually take these buying, for example, for a lot of countries, be it the US, Mexico, the Caribbean, all together. That is really great. It's going to help them even more to use it regionally. So that's a really exciting step for us, and really important to scale our solution and our impact. Challenges for sure are understanding different markets. I think the US market is so much bigger than the Mexican market. It is really important for us to understand what clients need there, and how we can also access the best diverse talent there that needs this solution. But if I'm honest, I'm quite confident that that is something we will just figure out along the way.
Given your experience in the whole process of launching a nonprofit and now pivoting towards being a social startup, who do you turn to for advice? And what would you say to young women who are looking to follow your path?
That is so important. Okay, when I started out, I knew no single social entrepreneur. I was looking up social entrepreneurs whose, stories went out there. I got very inspired from that. And then I also really started out in the pandemic, so it was really hard to even try and find a network. But what I think was most important for me was to slowly build this network of other entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs and normal entrepreneurs, and really build friendships. And I can tell you now that a lot of my best friends are entrepreneurs. My partner is even an entrepreneur. And that I think is really important, because you have this network of people who understand exactly what you're going through, what challenges you're facing. Some are ahead, some are in a different stage, some are in your own stage. I think that's the most important thing, because being an entrepreneur is, I think, very challenging. It can be a roller coaster, because often you get at the same time the feedback that what you're doing is incredible and groundbreaking, and also that people doubt whether it's going to work out and be fundable at scale, for example. So you have to be able to hold that these very different messages very well, and you need other people who understand you. And I think especially if you're a woman who's becoming an entrepreneur, I think building that network is super important. And also knowing other women entrepreneurs who understand what you're specifically going through, because all things that may happen to you as a woman, men usually don't even notice that is happening. So I think having someone who can listen to you and understand you and give you tips on how they have overcome all of these issues, I think is really important.
And now I'd like to get into a little lightning round. Describe yourself in one word.
Curious.
How would you describe relocation?
Being truly open and willing to listen to the other person's experience.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Not to always give too much weight to other people's opinions.
What is the most impactful book you've ever read?
Oh, that's very hard because I read so many books and I will change my answer every day.
What is your opinion today?
Right now, Peak Mind by Dr. Amija, if I got that right. It's such a brilliant book about attention and has taught me so much about mindfulness, which I think is the best tool you can have to live a life that's sort of more in peace with yourself.
What makes you happy?
Spending time with people I love and intellectual exploration.
If I forget everything that you've said today, what would be the one thing you want me to remember?
The one thing I would like you to remember is that AI, for all the buzz it's getting right now, really has the power to also transform society to become more equal and more inclusive.
Well, awesome indeed. Well, that was Hannah Töpler, the founder and CEO of Intrare. Hannah, thank you again for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Abby.
You've been watching Invest Insights with Abby Lindenberg. Don't forget to join Abby and her next guest, Paulina Anguiano, founder of the Financial Detox. Please remember to subscribe, like, and follow. For even greater depth, subscribe to our website to download our annual business reports and register for our all-encompassing newsletter. And never miss a single insight. For Invest Insights, thanks for watching.